What up, Poppin T fam? It's your host, Poppin T. As usual, Poppin T. Today, I have my water gallon with me. No tea, gotta hydrate.
Oh, yeah.
We've been on a little break, it's been the off season, it's been slow. So we took a little break from recording, and we're getting back to it now because the season is starting to ramp up again. And with the season starting to ramp up again, people are saying things, coaches are feeling certain ways. Seeing their players again at practice, and saying certain things. John Harbaugh came out the other day and said some things, so we're gonna use that today as our tea of the day. So Poppy, talk to me about that, man.
So John came out in the first practice media conference afterwards and talked about Lamar for almost 2 minutes and the future of the team, future of Lamar, and one quote that he said that's been circulating around the league, around the media, has been, "The vision that we have together is that Lamar Jackson is going to become and be known and be recognized as the greatest quarterback to ever play in the history of the National Football League."
That's a big quote there.
He didn't mince any of his words. He came out directly, said that he thinks that Lamar is going to be the greatest quarterback to ever play. Better than Tom Brady, better than whoever else you want to put as your GOAT, whether that's, you think it's going to be Mahomes one day, he thinks Lamar is going to be the best. Now, we know that coaches are going to back their guys, but that is a strong thing to say about any player. What do you think about John saying that yesterday?
Honestly, man, I'm not mad at John for saying it.
Me neither.
I think he just kind of said something that a lot of us have been feeling. And it may just came out in a different way, but a lot of us are kind of tired of Lamar Jackson disrespect. Obviously, as Ravens fans, we've only been a part of it for these last 7 years. But he's dealt with that, like John said, through high school, through college, after winning a Heisman, going in the draft, telling him to play wide receiver instead of quarterback. All the slander, he can't win a playoff game, wins a playoff game. Oh, he can't go to the AFC Championship game, goes to the AFC Championship game. Oh, he can't win the Super Bowl. So it's just always been this, the finish line has just always been moved. And if the Ravens are true about what they say, and they really mean to invest in Lamar, then he 100% can be the greatest quarterback of all time. We've seen his records. He's only played 6 years in the NFL, and he hasn't played 17 out of 17 games, 16 games all 6 years. He's missed time, and he's still up there with the greatest with records. Some of his accomplishments. So I'm behind John on what he said. I think Lamar can 100% be the best quarterback of all time. He has 2 MVPs in 6 years, and he's only getting started. So I'm 100% on board with John with that one.
Yeah, I think it's a bold thing to say, but we've seen Lamar improve as a passer every single year coming into the league. He has that baseline of the athletic talent that he can rely on, and if he continues to improve as a passer in the way that he has over the course of his short NFL career, what's stopping him from really becoming the best of all time? You know that his athletic, it'll slow down eventually, but he's still going to be one of the top athletes at the quarterback position probably his entire career. And if he continues to grow his mind in the game, continues to improve his accuracy, continues to improve his deep ball, his decision-making, his pocket presence, what's stopping him from winning another 4 MVPs? What's stopping him from winning rings? I think that he has a lot more to accomplish, but I think he's on the right path. I just
go ahead.
You were speaking about the Lamar disrespect. Even this offseason, this dude's coming off an MVP trophy. Anytime anyone brings up the MVP trophy, they want to talk about, oh, he had the best defense. Oh yeah, blah blah blah. But he still won the MVP. And I'm seeing quarterback rankings all this offseason, and consistently, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow are ahead of him in these rankings. This dude came off an MVP.
I find it disgusting, man. I find it disgusting.
Joe Burrow and Josh
I find it
Allen
disgusting.
in majority of the quarterback rankings are ahead of Lamar. It's
It just doesn't make sense.
mind-boggling.
Doesn't make sense. Like, Lamar Jackson owns Joe Burrow. Like, the stats show it. Like, anytime, I think Burrow is 1-4, 1-5 against Lamar in the head-to-head matchups. I think him and Allen are 1-2. Lamar is 1-2 against Allen if you include that playoff game. But, like, Lamar has shown he's the second best quarterback. There's 3 quarterbacks in the NFL right now with 2 MVPs. It's Pat Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, and Lamar Jackson. So how is Joe Burrow over Lamar Jackson for a playoff run 2 years ago?
It doesn't make any sense.
Josh Allen had the best defense in 2019? Why didn't he win the MVP in 2019? Like, we talked about, Lamar has the best defense last year, and what was Josh's excuse? Like, I feel like my quarterback just doesn't get held to the same standard as other quarterbacks, especially, I know this is your guy, it's my guy too, because I'm a Ducks fan, but Justin Herbert, man, like, it just doesn't make sense, like, the standard that Lamar is held to from other guys, and
I think
he's proven everybody wrong so far, and he's just going to continue to.
I think it's just the fact that he plays the game very differently. Like, it's hard to lump him in with just the pocket passers and compare them. But, like, Lamar has some of the best pocket presence in the league. We saw a jump in his pocket presence last season. It was already good before, and last year, it's just like he has eyes in the back of his head. His accuracy's improved. Like, this dude is up there with the best passers in the league, along with being the most talented athlete, arguably in the league. Like, he's up there with Tyreek in terms of athletes, in my opinion.
100%. 100%.
So, like, why can't he be the greatest to ever do it? I mean, I wrote this down. What do you think he would need to accomplish to be lumped in? Like, I know that some people consider, like, A-Rod to be the most talented, but no one's going to consider him the greatest. Or people consider Peyton to be the most talented, but no one's ever going to consider him to be the best because of Brady's rings.
I would say, I think the GOAT in this conversation is kind of already solidified. I don't think it's like a Jordan and LeBron-esque thing where even though LeBron has 4, there's still an argument because he passed Brady and he passed Jordan in almost everything else. What Brady having 7 rings, like, rings mean so much more in football, I feel like, than they do in basketball. Mm-hmm. So it's like the probability of Lamar Jackson winning 7 rings, it's slim to none. So it's like, even if you were to retire with 3 rings and 4 MVPs, I still don't think that's enough. Like, that's puts you up there with the best, but it's going to be hard to knock Brady off his throne. The only person that really has a shot is Mahomes at this point, just because of him already having 3 rings so far in his career.
Yeah. I mean, I think when it's all said and done, and if Lamar can play as long as a Brady or a Breeze or a Rodgers, I think that, like I said, he's going to continue to get better, and we're going to see people talk about him in that way. He's just got to, because I know his work ethic, I know that I've watched him get better every single season going into, year 7 now? Like, I was watching a video the other day, one of my favorite podcasters, YouTube, NFL commentators. His name is franchise guy Marcus Whitman. He does like team breakdowns going into the season where he'll rank each team. And going into the 2019 season, I think he had the Ravens at 28 simply because he had Lamar as the worst quarterback in the league after his rookie season. Which, I mean, Lamar wasn't great as a passer in his rookie season.
I'm not hearing that team was 4-5 and he took them to the playoffs.
I
How is he the worst quarterback in the NFL? Like, I'm not hearing it. But go ahead, continue with the
Either way, he came out.
with the story.
Either way, he comes out, wins the MVP in 2019, and I think that we've seen a better Lamar every year since then. So you can win MVP in year 2 and continue to get better when you're MVP in year 6. Like, it's going to be hard to stop Lamar Jackson if he keeps improving at the rate that he is.
Yeah, it's really just on the Ravens to surround and support him, which is something else that we'll get into today for sure. I guess that's technically our next point, talking about some of the offensive departures and arrivals, and what that'll mean for Lamar Jackson this upcoming season. So the Ravens lost a couple of key guys, especially on the O-line. That's everybody's kind of question mark on the Ravens this season, along with the wide receiver position, obviously, but that's every year, so we know that. The Ravens lost Odell Beckham Jr. to the Dolphins, guard Kevin Zeitler to the Lions, tackle Morgan Moses to the Jets, and running backs Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins both to the Chargers. The Ravens were to go on to sign Deontay Hardy, wide receiver from Buffalo, running back Derrick Henry from Tennessee, guard/tackle Josh Jones from Arizona, and then drafted a couple rookies, Rosengarten, who is projected to be the right tackle from Washington, Tez Walker from UNC, who's fighting for wide receiver time, Rashid Ali, running back from Marshall, who will be playing probably this year with Keaton Mitchell being out, Nick Samak from Michigan State, and Devin Leary, quarterback from Kentucky.
Can't forget, we also lost John Simpson, our starting left guard, to the Jets.
True.
As well.
That is true. So a lot of offensive line, like, just completely revamped, basically. A lot of guys that'll be playing will already have been in house, already understand the scheme of the offense, but they're not NFL starters. Right now, it's looking like Voorhees is going to win one of the guard spots. Rosengarten is obviously the right tackle. Who would you like to see fill out that right guard spot if Voorhees wins the left guard job? You have Cleveland, Falele, and Jones, who's that switch guard tackle combo.
I think it's tough with Cleveland because I think that he should be the guard, but he did get beat out last year by John Simpson. He got drafted in 21, so he's had time to develop, and even last year the coaches weren't super confident in him to go out and win that job. But in terms of upside, I mean, Cleveland is a massive human being. I would love to see him start there. I mean, in an ideal world, I think you could have Rosengarten inside at guard, and then Falele at that right tackle spot.
Okay.
Just because Falele has that mammoth build. He's had 2 years to develop in that tackle spot. I know that's where he's played for most of his time, his limited snaps, like, playing.
Yeah.
So I would like to see Falele there. I think that he'd be good in either spot. I know they just don't love to stick taller guards inside just because of the quarterback being able to see over their head, but my ideal offensive line probably is Ronnie, Voorhees, Linderbaum, Cleveland, Falele in terms of upside, and I would hope that Falele could go, but I love the Rosengarten pick because he was very good at Washington, and I think he's going to be ready to go. Whereas Falele has been a question mark. So I think will be fine at the tackle spot between those two guys. It's the question mark at guard for me.
I agree. I agree. Voorhees, I feel like I'm less worried about him, even though I know he's coming off a ACL injury. But it's just like he was so dominant at USC. I'm just like I know he's going to get back to his old
Yeah.
self. So I really just been worried about that right guard position. In an ideal world, I would like Macari to be the right guard, but obviously with Stanley, we all know Macari is kind of like
Swing.
a tucked away O lineman. Like he's never really going to be a starter for us. He's just a very serviceable guy who's like ready to go when somebody goes down.
6th man of the year.
Yeah, basically Russell Westbrook. So we're between Jones, Cleveland, and Fale. Is it Fale or Falele?
I think it's Falele.
Falele. And it's like, okay, with Jones, you have the experience. He's played in multiple games across his career. He started for multiple franchises. But with Cleveland and Falele, you get those big maulers. Like, those are both very big, massive human beings. So I think I want to go with Cleveland based on how he looked in Zeitler's absence towards the end of the season. Hopefully he can take that and continue to ride that into this upcoming season. But the O-line is definitely going to be a question mark. But it's like with Lamar Jackson and his playing style, I feel like you have to have Rosengarten out there at tackle because he's the most athletic out of all the options. Then when you have a guy like that behind you back there, you got to be able to move. You can't have your feet in the ground because you just never know where he's at. And pass rush is trying to disengage. It's hectic. So
That's a good point. I think when Lamar was a younger player and it was more of a Greg Roman scheme, it made more sense to have a bigger tackle like Zeus to really just run power, run gap, hit you in the face and just run right into you. But now that the offense has spread out a little bit more, Lamar's moving around a lot more in the pocket, passing a little bit more, it might make more sense to have a more athletic guy in there as opposed to Faalele. So that's a good point. I don't know if I feel super confident with either at this point, but one thing about Lamar Jackson is that he does elevate the offensive line just because of how elusive he is in the pocket. I mean, we've played with some pretty subpar units on paper before, and I've never felt like the offensive line has been an issue in the Lamar Jackson era. This is probably the worst unit on paper. So it's definitely going to be a question mark.
Yeah, that Villanueva season was rough, but that was really just one guy.
I mean, he was a turnstile, so I don't think...
Yeah.
I don't know if any of these guys will be anywhere near as bad as Villanueva, but got to cross your fingers on that one.
Yeah, you never know, man. You never know. All right, but that's enough of the O-line. I kind of want to talk about that wide receiver gain to loss aspect ratio. So you really... Oh, I forgot about Devin Duvernay. We lost Devin Duvernay to the Jags as well. I forgot to say that. So it's like, okay, you lose OBJ and you lose Duvernay. You replace that with Walker, Hardy, and you hope that Wallace can step up. How are you feeling about the wide receiver room going into the season?
And you also hope that you can get a healthy Rashad Bateman because he missed time last season, and I think when he was playing, it was clear that he wasn't 100%. I think that you can't just talk about the wide receiver room the way it is just as the wide receiver room, especially with bringing in Derrick Henry. Like, I just think that it's going to be way more lean into 12 personnel. It's going to be way more of a lean into running the football with play action. I think that I would be more worried if Eric hadn't handed that contract to Rashad. They clearly have a lot of trust in him. We know that Zay is going to be that number one. He's only going to improve from last season. which was a great rookie
Mm-hmm.
season. I really think that Bate can be that number 2. And you add in Devontae to become that field stretcher, just come in a couple snaps a game, run a go ball, make people have to pay attention to that speed down the field. I think that it's a fine enough unit on paper. Obviously, I'm not completely
Mm-hmm.
happy with it, but we did have an emergence from Isaiah Likely last season as that H-back, Y tight end, slot, whatever you want to use him for.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't just view... I don't think I can view the wide receiver room as its own thing right now. I view it as a
Mm-hmm.
weapon room, and I don't think Lamar's hurting for weapons, personally.
I do feel what you're saying in the aspect of you can't just talk about the wide receiver room. I really do like that point. But it's like it's always going to be important because that's just how the game is changing. So no matter how we talk about it right now in the middle of July or the end of July, when we get to September, October, we're going to be frustrated about the wide receiver room. It's going to come a point like it's going to happen. It just feels like undeniable for Ravens fans. But it is a nice group. I think it's one of the most well-rounded groups. You have a guy like Zay Flowers who can play absolutely everywhere. Inside, outside, you can line him up in the backfield if you wanted to as well. He's just a very explosive and dynamic guy with the ball in his hands, and there's just so many ways to get the ball in his hands because he's such a great route runner. And then you have Bateman, who, like you said, he only played in 12 games last year, and wasn't healthy when he got back, obviously. But he creates separation with the best of them. I know I may sound like I'm talking crazy right now, but you can look up the numbers and the stats to back that up. Rashad Bateman gets open. He just doesn't get the looks. Then you have a vet like Aguilar in the mix as well.
Can't forget about Aguilar.
Had a little less than 400 yards, 4 touchdowns last year. So it's like, all right, you lose OBJ, you lose Duve. But if Bateman can step up, I think Odell only had about 500 receiving yards last year. I think Bateman can do that if he stays on the damn field.
I think so, too.
So it's like we didn't take a big loss, in my opinion, in the wide receiver room. It's like, all right, you lose Dude, but Wiley showed you can do it. And Hardy was a former All-Pro at returner. So I'm kind of like you. I'm not confident with our wide receiver room, but like I'm all right with it.
I think it's a push, honestly, between this year and last year.
Yeah, especially like you said, with Likely stepping up last year and in Andrews' absence and getting Andrews back healthy. I think we're all right in that department.
And now they've had... I mean, last year I feel like Likely came out of nowhere. And now that the coaching staff has had an off season to really game plan with both of those players, Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely, in the ball game, I still expect Likely to produce even as tight end too, based on what he's shown last season. Why not incorporate both of them? They're both fantastic weapons on this team. And if you think about it like, all right, Mark Andrews is your number 1 weapon, Zay Flowers is your 2, Rashad Bateman is your 3, Likely is your 4, Aguilar is your 5. Like, that's a pretty good unit on paper.
100%.
And let's not act like Odell was super special for us last season, and Duvernay hardly played wide receiver last season. So I'm not super worried about it. I'm honestly excited to have Mark Andrews back, obviously, and to see how they're going to use both of those tight ends. Because
100%.
this is what Hayden Hurst and Mark Andrews were supposed to be. Except
Yep.
Likely's good and has been healthy. So
What are you trying to say about Hayden Hurst?
I don't know. I guess no hate to Ginger Jesus, but I feel like he was all bark and no bite as a tight end.
Okay.
I mean, he was an athlete, but and there was some high points with him in Baltimore, but I feel like he's just never lived up to that first round pedigree.
Not at all. Not at all. He definitely had some flashes, but you were 100% correct. All right, so let me ask you this question: do the Ravens have any 1,000-yard receivers this year? With everybody who's going to be targeted, and then you add in Derrick Henry's rushing attempts, does anybody break 1K? Last year, the closest person was with Flowers with 858 yards. Then after that, it was Andrews with 544. Odell was in that range, and then nobody else was really close.
I'd like to think Andrews can hit 1,000, but why did no one hit 1,000 last year?
Well, at first, I believe Andrews was on pace to hit it. Or not on pace, but a little behind pace to hit it. Then he got injured. So then the focus flipped to Zay in his attempts. And Flowers and likely became the two leading receivers after that. But it's really just Andrews was really our only hope. And then he got injured. And by the time he got injured, it was just too late for Flowers to get to 1K.
I don't know. Maybe Andrews. But I do think that this offense is going to be more geared towards the run game with Derrick Henry and Lamar.
Yeah, I agree. I think when we first signed Henry, I was very optimistic about him creating opportunities for everybody else.
Which I think he will.
Yeah, he 100% will, but like the more I think about it, it's like, okay, you have Derrick Henry, you have Justice Hill, you just drafted Ali, and you have Keaton Mitchell coming back whenever he gets back. How could you not run the ball? Like, that's your running back room. Why are you putting the ball in the air? Like, when you can go back there and get in a little Heisman formation like they used to run with RG3 and have Lamar, D. Henry, and Keaton Mitchell out there. And then it's like, then what? Take it back to Louisville and run a triple option and give the league a hell just because you can and you have the personnel. But yeah, like you said, Andrews I think is number one in hopes of getting it. Flowers, and then after that, I don't think anybody else has a chance, like, at all.
And I just listed 5 mouths that need to be fed in that receiving room. So it's not Ravens teams of past where it was pretty much Hollywood and Mark Andrews were the weapons. Like,
Yeah.
Aguilar for our 5th option is a capable wide receiver that Lamar has shown trust in and reliance in last year. And that's the 5th piece. So
And shoot, who knows? Tez Walker.
yeah.
He might show up on the scene. He's 6'2" and ran a 4.36.
Can fly.
So like, you never know. He might end up becoming, the true wide receiver too. Might overtake Bateman and show he's that guy. But we'll find out come September. I'm very excited.
I mean, RG3 said it the other day that he thinks this is the most talented roster that Lamar has ever had to work with. So
Yeah, I think it's an argument between this year and last year.
pretty much.
That would definitely make for another episode. Us kind of breaking down this year's roster and last year. But I want to get into some expectations. Lamar Jackson is at about 30 and a half total touchdowns for next season. Poppy, he had 24 touchdowns last season. In the air, 5 on the ground for about 29. You add D. Henry to the mix. Does that take from Lamar Jackson's touchdowns? So last year he was at 29 total touchdowns without D. Henry. This year his line is at 30 and a half.
I think he'll surpass 30. Personally, I don't think that Henry is the goal line back that you would assume that he is.
Okay.
I think he just doesn't. He takes a second to accelerate up to speed, but then once he's up to speed, you can't bring him down. I honestly think that Gus is probably a better goal line back than Henry is.
I knew you was about to say that. I knew you were about to say
It's
that.
just my opinion. Just my opinion. But
I knew that was coming.
I think they'll use Henry as a decoy a lot on the goal line and run a lot of QB sweep, QB power. Use Henry as a blocker a lot. I think that he can do it, and like I said, he has a lot of mouths to feed in the receiving game as well. I mean, he passed for 36 in 2019 with Willie Snead and Hollywood, and I just don't see how he wouldn't pass 30.
I kind of want to say the under.
I don't know how he went under that last year, personally.
Yeah. It's just because Gus got so many on the goal line.
Yeah.
Gus had 13 rushing touchdowns last
And you're
season.
going to tell me that Gus isn't a better running back than Derrick Henry?
So yeah, I think that's about all the time we got for today. But look, man, it's just like I don't know how you have a backfield of D. Henry and Patrick Ricard, and you're not giving him the ball on the goal line. Like I feel like that's just not one of the only option, but the best option is to put your trust in 42 to go open up a hole.
Mm-hmm.
Feel me? Pull 66 around, pull Cleveland around Linderbaum, let him go hit the deep tackle in the mouth, and let 42 go hit the linebacker in the mouth, and let 22 just run it behind him. I don't want to see 8 getting all play fakes and tucking it and running around the corner.
Mm-hmm.
Go punch somebody in the mouth. Let's play some Ravens football, and let's send Tucker on the field afterwards to make it 7.
I get it.
So I feel like his touchdowns will go down this year. I don't know. I feel like Lamar might throw around. I think it'll be like right at 30.
Yeah.
I don't think he'll get that 31.
I don't know how he didn't pass for more than 24 touchdowns last season. I think that'll creep back towards 30, and I could definitely see a world where the point you just made, like, why put Lamar in harm's way?
Yeah.
So.
Like, what else did you go get D. Henry for if it was not to go run him into the end zone?
That's a fair point. It's just, I don't want to admit that it'll be under 30 because that makes winning an MVP super hard. But
hey, he did it this year. So
it's true.
He did it with 29. Maybe he can do it again. All right, so we've kind of talked about some expectations for a couple players. Just bouncing around about what we expect from the offense this year. I specifically want to talk about Isaiah Likely. And specifically Likely because they've said he's been trying to learn about, obviously not every position, but every position. He's been lining up at different wide receiver positions. He's been with the O-line, learning some blocking techniques. What do you expect from him going into year 3?
I mean, I expect him to. I think he was a backup before, but I think that he will step into the role of H-back, Y tight end. Like, you have Andrews as your inline blocker, and then you have, whether that's lined up in the backfield, in the slot, Likely's going to move around. He's going to play that Jonnu Smith, that Chigo Okonkwo role, where that Kyle Juszczyk role in San Francisco, moving him all around, using him to crash down on a defensive end, using him to leak out on play action up the seam. Like, I think that they're going to get very creative with his usage, but he's going to show up 4 or 5 times a game in different ways. And it's going to be very difficult for defensive coordinators to scheme around someone like Isaiah Likely, who's an exceptional athlete. They're going to move him around. I think that it'll be very similar to, this is my last point on this, what I expect the Raiders to do with Brock Bowers. You have Michael Mayer as your inline blocker. Brock Bowers is going to be moved all over the place for the Raiders, just creating opportunities for him to eat. And it's not quite the same thing because I think Brock will be the number one tight end there, but it's very similar in the way that they can use Likely.
Now, do you see Likely taking minutes away from Rashad Bateman? Like them optioning to put two tight ends out in the field, 89 and 80, instead of putting 7 and 4. Like putting Collier out there as well, and putting Ricard and going jumbo set a lot because of Likely and his ability in the run and passing game versus putting Bateman out there.
For sure. I think Likely more than proved that he is deserving of reps in this offense.
Like if you had to rank the reps, and we're running out of time here, kinda, of offensive players. Like we know obviously Lamar, D. Henry, but when it comes to just pass catchers, at reps and attempts wise, what do you think the order will go?
I think I said it a little earlier, but Andrews, Zay, it's going to be very close. Bateman, Likely, Aguilar. I think Bateman will get slightly more work, but only because it's harder to use a tight end because you're showing run pretty much.
See, I think it'll be the other way because of that exact reason. I think Likely will get more touches and targets than Bateman because of the fact that D. Henry is in the backfield. So because of the fact that you have to come bring another linebacker on the field, and I know both of my tight ends are faster than both of your linebackers, we're going to run a play-action boot. Or we're just going to get under center and then drop back and let our guys go work. Or we're going to get down the goal line, and you want to match your corner with my tight end, good luck. Let's see how that works for you. I kind of expect Bateman to be, like you were kind of saying about Deontay Hardy, just being that guy to kind of take the top off. That's really the shots I'm expecting Bateman to get. I'm not expecting...
as well.
I'm not expecting Bateman to be a consistent wide receiver 2 or third option. I'm more expecting him to be a big shot, big play, third down guy. And I'm okay with him being in that role. I think Andrews and Likely, and then the addition of Flowers in the wide receiver room are more than capable enough to get the job done.
So one other player that we wanted to talk about in terms of expectations on the offense. What do you expect out of Ronnie Stanley this year for the Baltimore Ravens?
That's a very interesting question. Because we all know what Stanley can be, and we all know what he has been recently. Just dealing with a lot of injuries. But he said he feels healthy. He said he feels the best he's ever felt. He said he feels comfortable. So, like, I'm not expecting him to have a big year, but, like, I'm hopeful. I don't need him to be at his former All-Pro level that he once was. I just don't want him splitting drives with Macari. I don't want him going every other because he doesn't feel comfortable. I want my blindside protector, my All-Pro $20 million a year plus left tackle out there at all times. And if he can't do that this season, then I think we need to look elsewhere, either free agency, in-house, or in the draft. But I'm expecting a solid year from him just because, you know, his word of mouth and saying he feels good. So if he feels good, I'm hopeful, and I'm expecting, you know, a bounce-back season for him for sure.
I think that him taking that pay cut after the season, going into this next season, was very telling that he knows that he didn't play up to the level that he thinks he can play up to. He wants to prove that he can play up to something of that All-Pro level. I don't think that he'll reach it, but I think if we can get a top half left tackle in the league, somewhere around 16 to 10 as the 10th best tackle in the league. Like, that's perfectly fine with me. So,
Yeah. I miss having those conversations where it was like him, Smith, and Bakhtiari were like the best tackles and left tackles in the league. Him and Trent, obviously.
and Ronnie was on the way up. Ronnie was like 26 years old.
Like, was looking good,
Room to
man.
improve.
Was looking good.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we'll ever reach that again, but it's the same thing with a lot of these players. If we can just get healthy versions of them, I don't see any reason why they can't return to some level of what they once were.
Yeah.
So,
a lot of expectations for this offense, for sure. I just want them to be explosive. I want them to pop. I don't want them to play around with lesser opponents like we have a tendency of doing. I want this Ravens team to go out there every week and show people who we are and what
physicality.
Yeah, you feel me? Like, I want them to show what we are as a franchise every single week. Prove that every week. Never take your foot off the gas and just go punch everybody in the mouth because we can do it, and I've seen us do it. I watched us go out there against Seattle and play no games with Seattle. I watched us go out there and play Detroit and play no games with Detroit. We played no games with San Francisco. We played no games with Miami. But then we go play the Colts and we're in a dogfight. We play the Steelers, we're in a dogfight. It's just the games like that. I'm just tired of those low level games. I just want us to be dominant, every showing.
I think that the personnel right now lends itself to going out there and playing Ravens football. I mean, we got big bruisers all across the offensive line. We got a big bruising running back. We got a big bruising fullback. We got two very good tight ends. It's time to come out, smash people in the mouth, and play Ravens football. And I don't think there's another team in the league that can replicate that, which means people aren't going to know how to handle that.
They don't. They don't at all. And we've seen that, since 2018. That when we really want to play Ravens football, we can, we will. But that's just one side of the ball. Football is a two-sided thing. And that'll definitely be our next episode, talking about our defense, key departures, like Patrick Queen, and some, new additions like Nate Wiggins. Do like we did today, talk about some player expectations. Obviously talk about the loss of Mac McDonald, Zachary Orr, what he wants to do in that new offense, and hopefully another big jump for Kyle Hamilton in year 3.
Yeah.
Let's see if Beaks can get back to double-digit sacks.
It's going to be exciting. Expect more content to be rolling out as the season starts to ramp up. Got the Hall of Fame game coming up in less than 2 weeks. So football is going to be back into the swing of things very soon. So get ready to see more and more out of us as that starts. We are back. We are so up. So thanks for sitting in with us. We know you missed us. Expect more soon.